Hello and welcome to episode 64 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. On the other end of the mic is Neil.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Neil. How are we doing?
Yeah, not bad. I'm not quite as croaky as you, by the sounds of it.
No, croaky and a little bit slow. Recording this the day I got back, or the day after I got back. So I'm running on very little sleep from about a week's worth of America, and including last night, in fact. So I am shattered. But hey, it's all part of the fun.
In a good way?
Yeah, just about, maybe. I'll figure it out one day. It's probably going to be another day of feeling like this at least. But, you know, what can you do? It's all
not
part of the fun.
Adepticon, maybe.
Exactly. That's not going to happen. So, yeah, it was long, and we'll talk a bit about that in a bit anyway. So, before we go too far, do you want to talk about Miles at Lil Legend Studios?
Yeah, so Miles is your man to go to for all of your painting needs. So Miles is fantastic at getting commission work done. So if you've got a centerpiece that you don't quite know how to tackle, or something you want to look a little bit special, Miles is your man. And if you fancy improving your own skills, give him a shout and see what he can do in regards to training and teaching, because he's also very good at that as well. And I was talking to someone only this week about how being a good teacher is a skill in itself. Yeah. Because a lot of people know how to do something. It's very hard to translate that and show people how to do it.
In fact, whilst I was in America, one person, and I can't remember who it is for the life of me, apologies, they were like, do you reckon Neil would be able to show me? And I was like, yeah, probably best going to Miles.
Yeah.
just
yeah, no, completely. I find it really hard. When I teach people, I end up, I was trying to show someone something at work this week, and I ended up going a million miles an hour. So I don't have this ability to sort of stop and let people think and digest. I'm like, sort of, do this, and it's just like a machine gun of information. And I know instantly that people aren't taking it in.
Yeah, it just takes, it's a skill, as you say, and it takes a lot of practice to hone those skills. So, yeah, Miles for that. Brilliant stuff. I'll take Element Games. So, as usual, I've come back from Adepticon with some ideas for maybe, new Stormcast army going forwards into another event. So I've been pricing that out on Element Games straight away, because I know that I'll get it, because I've got less than a month now till South Coast. So if I do it, it's only like 6 individual characters, but it needs to be with me as like by the weekend, so I can crack on with it, because
I started pricing up, you know, that new terrain.
Oh yeah.
I looked at that and went, wow, you know, I've got this thing about terrain. I'm always a bit excited about nice terrain, and all the new stuff came out, and I started thinking of a Zone Mortalis board that you could do, and having like, you know, engineering decks and loads of sort of machinery everywhere. And I saw that stuff and thought, oh, that'd be brilliant. And I thought, oh, we're going to need so much of it. And then, of course, instantly thought, you go to someone like Element, get that extra money off, you know, buy a load of it, get loads of crystals, all that sort of stuff. You could get quite a lot for not a massive investment.
Yeah. Well, with your crystals and that, you're pushing towards 25% off if you get it on release week. You know, you're not quite there. You're in the low 20s, but that's still pretty good. That's, you know, buying 4 kits, getting 1 free from GW. So
definitely, you know, it's those sort of things where you can really take advantage.
Yeah, and I'll definitely be looking at getting some of that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well, I am sure. So I've been away. I have done very little hobby in the last, since the night before Durham. So, yeah. That's
the mad sort of getting stuff done before a tournament.
Yep, and I pretty much only picked up a brush for like an hour apart from that. So I'm hoping to take some stuff to work this week. It's, I don't think it's going to happen at home, because I'm going to sort out unpacking and sort out my flat as well, which has been put off because I've been getting stuff ready for Durham and Adepticon. But hopefully you've been doing some hobby.
I've been doing a bit. I found it very hard to get motivated over the last couple of weeks. And I have struggled. I've been sitting down and getting a little bits and pieces done here and there, but I think it's weird that for me, the deadline of Golden Demon seems, even though we're talking like sort of endish sort of time of May, I'm just not that motivated, sort of worried about it yet. I probably will be once we hit in April.
Yeah, it's less than 2 months.
I know, but it's weird. I'm not, I suppose it's the whole sort of thing of after a big sort of session of painting and doing all the stuff for Heresy, Weekender, I think I'm sort of like, that sort of impetus of I must paint 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours every night. It's sort of worn me down. I'm finding it hard to sort of get back into that frame of mind.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Guys were asking if I was working on my Space Wolves, and kind of got no motivation at the moment. So what I'm going to try and do is just take my Prospero and Calth bits and whatever else I've got into work, I think, and just try and make 20 Grace layers at work. And I think that'll just start it off.
It sometimes takes that little kick, doesn't it, to get things going?
Yeah. Fingers crossed, because I've still got plenty of other stuff I'm working on as well. So I do need to get back on the horse, as it were, and crack on with that. And with other things going on, I'm organising other stuff as well. So more and more, kind of demands on my time. So it becomes more important that I kind of schedule it in when I can and make sure I follow that through.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Indeedly doodly. And nothing else in this kind of section. I think we'll move on to I will have. I knew there was something. I was trying to think of it. So I've just sent out an FAQ for the London Heresy, or Zach, the guys have sent it out for me. And it's on the website and it's on the event page as well. And it's, a list of comprehensive questions with what I think are sensible answers, and most people that I've shown it to. There are some judgment calls in there as well, because there are no definitive answers for some of those issues. So I've made a judgment call on what I think is fun and fair to a point. And if people have got any major issues, and it has to be a major issue, not just like, I don't like this rule, then it has to be you have to be able to back it up with something from the book to make me change my decision. So I haven't gone through all of those rules with a fine-tooth comb. I might have got one or two wrong, and that's fair if I have. But if you are going to tell me that, then you need to kind of put some facts behind that and be able to show me. Otherwise, if it's just, I don't think that this rule works like this, it works like that, then, I've read the question and I've answered that question. So we'll see. Let's say hopefully, little things like, there's a couple of changes, like the melt bombs. We are going to be allowing all the melt bombs to be used. Changes to invisibility, and confirming that 6s always hit. You can't make someone auto miss, and you can't make someone auto hit. So just little things like that, which because making someone auto miss is not a particularly fun things have happened.
It's a higher end sort of stuff, isn't it? It's the stuff where people get really gamey. So if someone is complaining about that, it's probably because it was their game plan, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, even then, it's just, if you say Magnus is the example, he's -1 to hit all the time. I mean, Russ works the same. But I mean, Magnus is simpler in that respect. If you make him invisible and he's -1 to hit, and you allow that to mean he can't be hit, and he's in combat, well, all you do is take models off. That's not fun. That's not the way the game's supposed to work. So, rightly or wrongly, you can always hit on a 6. But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, everyone understands that it's for the good of the event, I think. And with, some of the news we're dealing with coming up, it might not matter so much for that long, but for now it is what it is on that event. So there we go. And the first 2 fingers of alcohol if you're playing the drinking game for tonight. So
have we decided on what that is yet?
What?
The actual words for the drinking game.
Oh no, someone else decided it. I found the review again the other day, but I can never remember exactly what they all are. Good stuff's one of them. It is what it is. But, you know. It's all good. It's all good. Right.
It's all good.
It's all good. We'll leave that there and we'll come back and talk some news. Okay, well, we have some news. There are a few Forge World products, so we're recording this before the Friday, because this should be released on the Friday. So, you know, there might be a couple we're missing out here that you guys know about, but we got some Sagittarium Guard for the Legio Custodes.
Yes, we did.
These are great models. I think they're fantastic. Whether I want any in a list, I think when you've got when you've got all your units are so expensive, you tend not to have huge amounts of them. I'm going to find it hard to pick these over the ones I like more, like the jet bikes and things like that.
No, definitely, yeah.
But they're bulky, cool models.
They're very cool, and it's you know when we discussed about the Weekender and how it was a 3-month window, did we say?
Yeah.
For stuff, it seems to be coming true, doesn't it? Because that stuff was coming out pretty quick.
Ish, yeah. We're still waiting on those Morris hats. They've been shown for a long time. But, yeah, these are quick. And we've had the, £16 for the upgrade sprue. So if you're picking up your custodians cheap enough, like you should be at the moment still, on trading sites or eBay or wherever, then that's not a bad price at all. And then they're selling the set for 51. Naturally, but again, you get your upgrade set. It might be a bit different if you're buying enough stuff to get past your postage. Then that might make a difference, but I don't think that's a hugely bad price at all. And then they threw out the Mechanicum Karachnos assault tank.
Yes, indeed.
I love this tank. I'm gonna have to get.
It's a lovely bit of kit.
I'm going to have to get one at some point. Add it to the list.
The list of wants.
Oh, it's ridiculous. So, yeah. I mean, again, first shown at the Weekender and available fairly soon afterwards. That's pretty cool. It's big. I mean, that Trios chassis is pretty big. I always kind of forget how big it is next to the guys. But yeah. Yeah, use that to ram people and shoot them. It's wonderful. What more do you want?
Exactly.
I'm not even going to go into
Mechanic and vehicles.
It's
fantastic.
It's just a cool mechanic and vehicle. And as you say, we're getting pretty constant releases now. We had 1 week, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago with no Heresy, but they're filling out we seem to be getting either Lord of the Rings or Blood Bowl along with that every week.
Yes, we seem to have more. Because you used to have sometimes where you go a couple of weeks and not actually have a single thing out.
Yeah.
But now there always seems to be something, but it may not be Heresy, it may be Blood Bowl.
That's going to happen less and less and less as we're moving towards other games being done as well. So they're going to be busy boys, which is a good thing for us.
Indeed, yeah, definitely.
Depending on if you can afford to keep up, or if you can find the time to keep up. But it's all good. We had the release of the 40k custodian box as well, so there's some good value in that if you want a Rhino and a Land Raider as well.
Yes.
Which a lot of people have more than one army, so you can apportion stuff everywhere or sell stuff on. So I saw a few of those going. I think they were released the Saturday of while I was out in America, because they have a shop there that sells bits and sells stuff. And I think the first one was sold at like midnight or whatever. That day. It's like, it is Saturday, so you can have it kind of thing. Which is pretty cool. So, yeah. All the custodians, all the armies appearing everywhere, lots of people painting them. which is cool, because he's, although there's a worry from certain parts that all we're going to see is custodian armies out there. You know, if that's the way that someone needs to get into the Heresy, then I don't see it as a bad thing in that respect. If I make a narrative event, I might limit how many custodian armies are allowed, just so that you don't get too many. But at a narrative event that's a little bit larger, where you don't necessarily put in those control measures, then whatever, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love the custodians anyway, so I'm pretty a big fan of them. But it's a great way of, if you can get a few more people into it, and you know, it's not exactly. I don't think it's exactly going to be the easiest army to play with and win with. So it's just definitely going to, you know, if everyone starts running them, there'll be a lot of lists that could easily counter them, I think.
Well, yeah, potentially. I think it might take a little bit of a shift in people's thinking, learning how to play them as well, because they do work differently from other lists. You can't just stand up toe to toe with them. Yeah, that's not going to work. You have to play a bit more cleverly than that. But, and on the narrative side of it, I know people, well, there's only 10,000 of them and most of them stayed on Terra. And it's like, well, I played that 3,500 points and it had like 35, 37 dudes on foot. So, you know, even if you have 4 armies at 3,500 points with a roughly similar thing, you're only going to have 150 custodians, which is a huge amount of custodians, but you're not breaking the immersion to an extreme level.
Well, if you think about in 40k at the size of a Space Marine chapter, and I bet if you went to a 40k tournament, there'd be bundles of chapters that would probably the amount of Marines you should really have in any one narrative event. So yeah, I think it's equivalent.
Yeah, I will have to see it. You know, over the next few months, we'll start to see them really pop up on the event scene, and things will be made. If it does become that they're half the field, then you deal with it. But until that point, I strongly don't think it will. I think it's one of those armies where some people are looking to have an allied force. Some people it's their only way into the Heresy. You can stop them getting into the Heresy if that's the way they want to do it. You know, you're not. And other people who have more than one army will be kind of careful how they use them, I think. So, yeah, I see it as a positive. And also, you know, don't forget, it's not just the custodians. We got the sisters, and as more stuff comes out for them, they'll become more prominent as well. So, yeah, who knows? We shall see. But while I was away, I did attend the GW seminar, the Wednesday night, which was quite entertaining. We were asked not to put anything on the internet until after the second one at least, because, you know, allow people to kind of find out before the world does. That didn't last. There was tweeting and messaging from inside the room as it happened, and yeah, we got some confirmations of some changes to Warhammer 40k in terms of things like multiple movement values. So going back towards the older game where different races particularly had different movement values, which is an interesting concept to go back to. But I mean, it's an easy one, isn't it? Movement. It's not like you have to compare it to anything.
It's pretty simple to implement, isn't it?
Yeah, it just works. So in a simplified game, that's not necessarily an issue. Units that charge attacking first. Again, we don't know, like, that's all we've been told, so we don't know if there are, like, things that get round it, or if power fists and stuff still mean that you drop down initiatives, or what have you. You know, this is information without context. I can't even remember what else there was now, but there was a sense of excitement about the things that were happening. And, you know, they didn't even confirm, I don't even think they confirmed that there was an 8th edition. It was just changes to 40k. But we're going to have to see, because there's nothing been said about Heresy. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens, because, you know, we've got these books which are built for, you know, editions ago, and if they change it coming up, you know, then we're going to need, if we go with a new edition or whatever it is, you know, assuming it's an 8th edition, because that's the sensible way forwards, are we going to have to get movement values attributed over? Are we going to have to get more than that changed? Or are we going to stay with a Heresy rule set? People seem to have jumped on the fact that it's changing. I don't know. Frankly, it could go either way.
I personally think they'll keep updating it, FAQing it, errataing it, new red books, etc. To keep it in line with 40k, the current version of 40k, because I think they'll be always trying to keep it in that sort of current state, rather than allowing it to become an older rule set that then maybe makes it that even a little bit harder for people to get into.
Yeah, that's the fundamental thing, is if it becomes too much of a different game, people won't cross over. So I can see it going that way, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. You know, and I'm not going to get worked up about it. I have faith in GW over the years that, in general, I've liked what they've done. There are the odd notable exceptions, but I'm not gonna start worrying about it until we see what's definitely happening, because there's nothing you can do about it anyway, you know, and I'm not going to sell my models now just in case they change it to an edition I don't like. So, you know, just roll with it. I'll see what happens.
See what happens.
See what happens, and make decisions. And yeah, if you really don't like the new system, then you can carry on. Now, 90% of people won't carry on with an edition when a new edition comes out. They do their own thing, but you only have to look at like 9th Age for Warhammer. You know, they're going to struggle to get new blood in, but there's a community that carry on with their own gaming system, which is a revised edition of old 8th edition Warhammer. And there are groups who go out and play 2nd edition 40k. So, you know, you can do what you want. The longevity of that is questionable. Now, okay, you might turn around and say, well, these 10 guys in this town are really into it. It's like, well, you know, 10 guys is nothing. It's but you can do what you want within that as well. You're not restricted by GW, and that's something they've made out. And we got, you know, one thing that's happened in Age of Sigmar with the open narrative and match play, which is what they're bringing in as well for 40k, is the Age of Sigmar crowd have taken a sense of ownership over the rules, which has never happened before, but is exactly what GW wanted you to do before. They're like, here's our rules, go and use them how you want. And people have gone, oh, here are the rules, we must obey the rules. And it's like, well, they've always, you know, GW have always put in there, try some DM games, try some, you know, do this, do that. Try uneven points and all that. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects 40k, particularly as there's going to be a general's handbook type thing released initially. So they're not going to have that time period that what the Age of Sigmar crew had, where they had to step up themselves. So, yeah.
I mean, where the world ended for all the old fantasy players.
Yeah, you know, and there was this big gap, and people were like, we've still got no points, what do we do? And 4 different, like, point systems it came out of the community, out of, you know, key people in the community. And GW actually kind of piggybacked off one of those, but actually those other point systems were, you know, they're not completely thrown away, because other events, like more narrative events, say, have kind of try to keep the feel of those. In some instances, a specific one that they've liked. And as I say, because GW didn't make them initially, they feel very much like the community's gone, yeah, we'll do it. So, and although GW are now adapting, updating rules as they go through the year, I I think people feel more free to go, right, well, we're going to play this, but we're going to change these rules up and ignore this part. Which is, as I say, which is how, like, you look back on all Jervis's articles and Rick Priestley's talking about it and stuff. They always were like, this is a game to do that with. The original, going back, it was originally a DM'd game almost. So, yeah, lots of cool stuff.
I was quite shocked that when I got my copy of the Road Trader, how complicated it was for one thing, but also how much freedom there was to sort of make things up that you wanted to do throughout the game. And there's a lot of things in there that says, DM to decide. And things like that. So it wasn't even a written rule. It was just a case of, if this happens, you work it out for yourself. Yeah,
and obviously there's got to be a balance in that for a large enough scale game, and times change, and miniature game design changes, and you've got to be at the forefront of it as a company like GW, and now they are. They really are pushing it big time. So, yeah, I think it's cool. It's very cool. But moving on, we also saw the Death Guard for 40k. So, much like the Thousand Suns, I think everyone's hoping that there's enough bits in there to steal and mix and play across. But, we haven't got to the point in the books yet where the Death Guard fall, but there's no reason you can't start modelling a force up now if you want.
Yeah, and most people might want a bit of crossover with their 40k and their armies anyway, so they can now sort of make a good crossover.
Yeah, and the stuff looked really cool, really cool. And the little tease of a large scythe means Mortarian's coming, so it'll be interesting to see that model as well, because the quality of Guilliman and of Magnus, it's going to be a cool thing, so. Yep, there was lots of chatter, lots of oohs and ahs and whispered, kind of conversations going on as this was all released. And the guys doing it were enjoying it as well, and really playing up to it, which was very cool. You talked earlier about Shadow War Armageddon. So this is it's a vehicle for selling orcs and scouts by the looks of it. But they put in some cool terrain and Necromunda style rules. So these are harking back to the Necromunda. So Necromunda was a specialist game, and one of the best that GW made, in my opinion. It was based off the old second edition rule set, so everything was very intricate. Like rolling to attack each other was, compared to what we do now, was quite complicated. But it's a fantastic game, and rather than, it appears that this is quite a good idea. It's like, I think we all assume that Necromunda will be done in its way, and that, it could be wrong, but I think there's an assumption from a lot of people that specialist games will have to get around to Necromunda properly at some point. But this game scratches that itch whilst allowing people to use all their 40k stuff, and that also encourages people to start new 40k armies for little war bands, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm confident Necromunda, when they do it, is going to be a fantastic specialist game, because I loved Necromunda when I was a kid. It was absolutely one of my favourites. So, yeah, this definitely gives that outlet for people, doesn't it, to sort of maybe start converting some stuff up. And there's so many cool new kits now as well.
Oh, big time.
So many cool plastic kits that if you fancy, you think, oh, do you know what? I fancy just a squad of those guys because I really love the models now, Get a squad of them, convert them up, and then you can crack on.
Yeah, and in the new White Dwarf, they've got they've taken loads of the kits, the terrain, to make a new board which looks fantastic, and it's a cool board. It all mingles with the other terrain as well, so. You can buy loads. I've heard people talking about buying 5, 6, 7 boxes already, just for the terrain, because it is that good, and then, like, trying to sell the orcs and the scouts. But, who knows, you'll probably be left with a lot of scouts on your hands. But
yeah, I can't see them being too popular.
No, the orcs are alright. The orc players always need orcs, but, the scouts are a little bit dated, shall we say. So it makes sense to put them in that box to try and get rid of them. But yeah, it does look fantastic. Haven't really, we've seen a couple of little shots of the cards and stuff, and it does feel that little bit Necromunda-ish, but obviously it's going to be a little less personal than Necromunda was. And yeah, it gives me a reason to make a little 40k force for the first time in ages, really. So I was talking about doing my kill team. I'll do it for that kill team and for Necromunda, this Shadow War Armageddon as well, I think. And because that's the hobby project, I was actually considering jumping on some of those Caradrian Overlords, these Sky Dewadin from Age of Sigmar.
They are brilliant. Yeah. They are so cool.
They are cool. They've got a really cool story. And I just kind of want one of those big ships to be the way my Inquisitorial force moves around. Like just, like Mechanicum it up a little bit and have this as a commandeered vessel for an Inquisitor. But, yeah. And that's literally it. That's the one model I want from the whole range. I think they're cool, but I'm not going to collect them for Age of Sigmar yet. So, but I'm already thinking I'll buy one of the big ships anyway. It's a nightmare.
They are, I mean, I must admit, I saw them, I thought they were brilliant. It really is bringing that steampunk feel to Age of Sigmar, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, steampunk's an interesting thing. It's like early kind of Jules Verne style, as opposed to, like, steampunk has various levels, as a lot of things do. What it does show is with Age of Sigmar, they've created this high fantasy world where nothing's off limits, which is awesome. So, I mean, who knows what we're going to get next? But these models are awesome, and a lot of people have eyed them up for squats, for a militia force. And I think if you went and bought a load of guns or whatever and did some weapon swaps and things like that, yeah, you know, a force of militia like that would look quite cool. But yes. They did make one more announcement, so that was Shadespire. Now I'm going to talk about this a little bit, just because of how interesting it is, and it shows GW's like mentality in the market, maybe. So we got to go and play it, but it's a little board game on, and the boards together are about the size of a laptop, so not very big. And the idea is you have a small group of warriors, and you can tailor your list, and indeed you can tailor your card decks that go with them as well, which gives you bonuses and powers and things like that. And you fight this arena combat between your little groups. And the idea is you can play 3 games in about 40 minutes of this combat. And we played a demo turn with 4 activations per side. So I move and attack, or move or attack, and then my opponent does the same. And by the 3rd activation, so I'd activated once, opponent once, me again, I got the basic rules down. It's that simple. So there are more complicated things you can do with the abilities on cards or the abilities of certain models, but that was the simplicity of the game. And this is obviously designed to aim at, like, it's a kind of a miniatures version of Magic the Gathering.
Oh, okay.
Where you can sit down, it takes up a small amount of space, and literally a smallest amount of space. Like, actually, when you put, I don't know if you've seen the Magic players pull their little mats out to play on.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
If you put 2 of those mats together, it'll probably take up more room than Shadespire did.
Oh, wow.
Like, as a set. There's loads of tactical complexity because you don't even have to line the boards up so they match. You can have them offset at each other and things like that. You can, as you say, you can make your army lists. You can bring in new characters. You can change up your deck, things like that. And it plays very, very quickly. And even within, like, the first turn, I was like, oh, I realised I could use this card, do this in this turn, or hold off, let him come to me. There's lots of tactical flexibility. And they're going to support it with regular releases. So they're just going to be putting out new models all the time to play in the game. And because they're Age of Sigmar models, they're also going to put rules in there to use them in Age of Sigmar as well. So, which is sensible. It costs next to nothing to do that. And, we saw some really competitive gamers were jumping on it as a pure competitive kind of, it is designed to be competitive, but also fun. So, yeah, it's a very interesting direction that GW have gone in. They've obviously, someone there's seen a market, for, as you say, a miniatures version of Magic and Magic the Gathering. It's hugely popular, it's hugely fun. Also doesn't take up huge amounts of space, which means game stores love it because they sell loads of cards anyway, but they can hold a 30-player Magic event in the space you can hold, an 8-player tournament for Warhammer.
Yeah.
So, that's gonna bring in the local friendly gaming stores on board to go, yeah, well, we'll do that. They're talking about, and then the possibilities, talking about having nationals and championships and prizes and not having it limited, not having it collectible. So everyone's got access to everything. So there's none of that. Keep spending money, and the person who spends the most money
keep buying packs of cards because you need one card.
No, yeah, this will be controlled in that respect. Obviously, I'm pretty sure they're going to put enough stuff out that if you want to keep buying stuff, it's going to cost a fair whack. But if you just want to collect one or two factions, then that's not going to be an issue. If you want to collect them all because you want tactical flexibility, then that's up to you, isn't it? So, yeah, it was a fantastic little game. Whether I play it regularly or anything like that, I got out of Magic for a reason, because it sucks you in. And I found Magic the Gathering way more expensive than miniature gaming. Because these models, you probably won't have to paint them or anything. So, I don't think you do, in fact. So, yeah.
So they kept it very basic then. They kept it so you don't even need to hobby if you don't want to.
The models themselves are push fits as well. And they are fantastic models. I mean, the Stormcast looks stunning. All three of them, including the female Stormcast, and everyone went wild for a bit. But, we saw, I think there was 8 miniatures on the table. They were all fantastic. As I say, a female Stormcast is good to see because, I think, a fairer representation of females in the lines will help, for a fairer representation of women at events, which is not a bad thing. And if you think it is a bad thing, don't bring those ideas up with me. Yes, I probably won't go down well. But, yeah, I think they look to have done everything right in the way they've handled it. And even announcing it the way they did, they had a community section to tell us, and other companies have been doing it for a while. We know that, I'm not getting into that, but this was this was GW's next step along the path they've taken. So we just applaud them for keep taking that path. And they had a question and answer session, I didn't get a price on Shadespire. That wasn't, either wasn't known or was deemed that it's too early to say. But we should be expecting that this year sometime in the summer, I think. Could be wrong. And that's really cool. And it makes you wonder what else they're working on. Because if they've got something for Age of Sigmar, I'm sure there's something for 40k coming at some point. So, loads of cool stuff. And I mean, also, so, I was queuing up. I've got, I bought the very important gamer ticket, which is, ludicrous that anyone can buy it. So it shows you how important it is. But I bought that ticket for Adepticon, which basically gets you a swag bag and gets you, to queue up before the other gamers and things like that. So, got a few bits with it. Walked in to get my bag and then got a GW hard case for free that was,
really?
On top of it.
Wow.
Yeah, Fantasy Flight were pushing their Room Wars, their kind of Warhammer variant. So we got a copy of that free. But they've been doing those kind of things for a while. But GW having a big hard case. I left one of my KR boxes out there and bought the hard case bag. And that's, I don't know how much they are. They're like 60 quid or something, maybe even more.
Yeah, they're quite dear.
Yeah, exactly. There's quite a lot of space in there for the right army. Completely wrong for my Mechanicum, but, I bodged it in there and I'm hoping they made it home safe. But for Marine armies, they're fantastic. So again, another huge step. And they were out there with all the Warhammer Live crew as well. So got to play on the live stream with Mr. David Witek from Garage Hammer, which was all good fun. Went and watched it back today as well. So, it was, they didn't mention this show at all. I think they just kept Age of Sigmar. But they did ask us the name of a couple of our Griffhounds. So we did sneak Bjorn and Garrow in just to cross the streams.
Excellent.
But yeah. I mean, that's all the news, but it was really, I thought it was pretty cool. I really did. And we're going to see, I mean, who knows what we're going to see coming up. It's going to get crazy. 40k is getting crazier, up until whatever happens. And yeah, I'd just say, just have faith in GW. There's no point worrying about it because what's going to happen is what's going to happen. And, you assess it, take your time to assess it. Even if you're not sure of what's happening, give it a go. Because the amount of people who went, I don't want to play Age of Sigmar, played it and went, well, actually, quite like it. But they'd lost like a year of playing it. It's a bit ridiculous really for the sake of an hour and a half like playthrough. You might as well do it when you've invested so much in the hobby. But that's
definitely.
But it is a little way off. So, yeah. But I don't know, I think that's all the news. I don't think we missed anything. I think that's been pretty busy. I say being over there, it's been in a bit of a bubble for the last week, so I haven't necessarily been active on everything. But, it's cool. Groovy. So what we'll do is we'll leave that there and we'll come back and we'll have a little bit of a chat about Adepticon. Okie dokie. So I have, as we've ascertained, not long back from Adepticon. Can't remember if we talked about it on the show before. I don't think we have. I think last time
we really have, and I've never been, so I'm quite interested to know the setup and how things work. And been to a lot of GW events, so I'll be interested to see if it differs from those.
Super different. So this is at the Renaissance Schaumburg Hotel. Schaumburg's just outside Chicago. And I mean just outside, not like, because you can be just outside Chicago and be an hour and a bit away. But it is, it's distance enough that it cost me a fair amount in the taxi to get to the airport on the Monday morning. But it's held in this big hotel with conferencing facilities. And I mean large conferencing facilities. It's a lot larger than the last hotel I went to. And within this venue, you have got almost any miniature game system you can think of. So GW were there in force. The big event of Adepticon it started out as a Games Workshop event, independently for Games Workshop games, should I say. So the big events, the 40k. They have a massive 40k team tournament where people go mental with their army displays. So 4 teams. This is the one the Games Workshop crew went and played in. They took out the studio Ultramarines army, including Guilliman, whose sword ended up being 90 degrees the wrong way after travel over there. So Duncan had to fix that. Like the afternoon they got it out of the box. They're pulling models out of the box going, I hope they're all right, because they're the actual heavy metal ones, which is awesome. So you've got this huge event going on there. You've got a big single player event. Age of Sigmar this year. It took a big hit in America, a bigger hit in America than it did over here. They were up to 120 players, I think, this year for the singles. Plus they ran a doubles, plus they ran a number of other events on the Thursday as well. Lots of variety. Heresy was, I can't remember exactly how many players. They had a lot of players over the weekend. They were running this narrative kind of stream, so 4 or 5 narrative events that all fed into each other over the weekend, plus plus other events that didn't necessarily add in quite so directly or not at all into that as well. And they were from anything from singles to Zone Mortales to doubles, so a lot going on with that. And that's just the GW games, and that's before you actually get into, there was some organised like other GW games as well. So they take up the most room. Then Privateer Press are there, Malifaux are there, Night Models, with some amazing models from Night Models. Mantic, Wild West Exodus is there, and then historicals, games you've never heard of, games that aren't released yet, games people have made up just for the show to put on. Like they do a huge Space Hulk game, like massive game of Space Hulk, which always sounds really awesome. Is always busy, I'm busy when they want to do it, things like that. And some of these games are like the main halls are concrete floored, hall. X-Wing, Fantasy Flight were there in force. X-Wing had a huge X-Wing event. They were in 1/3 of the hall with X-Wing and loads of other stuff. The middle third was the sales area, so all the companies are represented. The Forge World queue is always their longest because they don't get over there that often, or they don't get over there that way. They're actually changing the way they do that now. It used to be that they take crews from England over, but now they bring in local staff members, GW staff members, to do it.
Right,
which means that I think that means they can be at more events because they're only shipping stock then, and maybe one person rather than loads of people with it. And then the other third of that hall was 40k and Heresy. And even behind the Heresy bit, there was some narrative 40k stuff going on. Someone had built, I think they'd built a large citadel from Hell's Reach. It was definitely an ADB book, and they'd built Imperator Titans. It was a huge area they took over to do that. And that was completely separate from any kind of main event, as it were. And then as you walk through the corridors, some of the corridors have games going on as well, some smaller companies or one-off things that people have made up. So kind of everywhere you go, once you're in that area, say there was a shop with bits selling, there were people bring up what we'd call in England a bring and buy sale. They bought a pitch, had a table, they put their stuff out, and Dave Witek sold a load of old models he's collected from sponsorships from his show or just Kickstarted. He made over $700 on stuff he doesn't want anymore, and he was selling them at ridiculous prices as well. So but I picked up a drop pod. I was trying to resist, but I picked up a ready-made drop pod, a Warhammer novel from before Black Library existing. I think it was 1989. I was just like, I'll have that for $5. People selling off Battlefleet Gothic and Eldar Titans, and the next one was a whole Warhammer army, and then it's bolt action. Yeah. So that was kind of busy both evenings, Saturday and Friday and Saturday as well. Or Saturday and Sunday, whichever way around it was. Friday and Saturday. And then there's these events are going on all the time. So for 40k, Age of Sigmar and Heresy, there was not ever a period of time when there wasn't an event going on. And that's pretty much the case for all the others. So Privateer Press are pushing their stuff all the time. Previously, they've had 24-hour competitions kind of thing through the night as well. They've done stuff like that. And it's crazy. And it's all these gamers. And that's on top of that.
So is it all over one floor? Or is it multiple floors? Or
This was 2 floors. Again, it just depends. This hotel has the space to have it over 2 floors. It's like you walk down a long corridor from the hotel bit and you're in the convention bit, as it were. And you've got, so there's one main hall, which is 1 floor, like a typical kind of a hall like that. So say concrete floor, high ceiling, concession stands at the end, like you go to any kind of, like the NEC or anywhere like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
And then there were some other like ballroom type halls, which are, they use for conferencing and things like that. So a really large one for the Age of Sigmar. And then they can break them up with air walls, so they break them down. And then upstairs there were a few more, things like that. And that's where some of the seminar rooms were upstairs. The painting was actually nearer the hotel, down the corridor. So that's where all the painting seminars happen, and the hobby hangout section where I think some people just spent their whole, 3 or 4 days, around the painting tables talking and learning and just, or finishing off their crystal brush or whatever, because of course they have the crystal brush competition there as well, which is a $10,000 prize painting competition as well. So all this stuff's going on. And it's, it started off as gamers putting on an event for gamers, and then more and more the companies have got involved. So there's giveaways and there's prizes and they're running events as well as the gamers running events and all that. So I can't go hugely into the privative press and the Malifaux and the whatever games because I didn't really look at them that much because, limited interest in a lot of them now. And all they do is tempt you to spend money, but in a game system that I'm probably not going to play. So it's like, stay away from all, especially night models. Oh, looks so good. But yeah, so all these are going on, and some people will fill their day up from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night playing these games. The Age of Sigmar event, the main event was 8 till 6 on the Saturday, and then 2 games on the Sunday. But from that, there were then events in the evening as well, or seminars, or what have you. So you could go straight from that to learn how to paint with Duncan, or Israel. Who's the Infinity guy? Angel Heraldez. Yeah.
Yes.
Angel Heraldez. So, he's there doing that. So people are desperately trying to get into his, and then there's how to sculpt or what have you, how to play the game. So GW put on some kind of generals tactics seminars as well, things like that. And actually one thing GW did was quite interesting is they took a lot of the North American guys, and they had a couple of the English Warhammer guys, and they had a meeting about how to help build community. And that wasn't a seminar, that was an invitation only thing that they did for a number of guys out there to try and help them know where to go, which is really cool. But you've got all this going on, and then you've got a bar. so if people aren't there, they're in the bar chatting. And it's one of those destination events where people go back to Adepticon every year to meet up with people they haven't seen for a year. So whether they knew them before and they've moved away, or whether they met them at an event and meet them at Adepticon every year. And that's part of the reason I went, because on the Age of Sigmar side of things, I've got a number of friends who we stay in contact through Twitter and Facebook, and I get to hang out and chat with them, and face to face, which is so much different. And we get to do that and have a laugh. And of course, because of the show, being an Englishman as well, it's much easier for people to pick it up that I've got Age of Sigmar. I've been on Dave's Garage Hammer show and I know those guys. Heresy, of course, a number of the guys know me, and we had the guys from the Age of Darkness were there as well. Kenny Lull was there. We had Freddie the Swede, and we had Ryan Kimmel, and others. I'm missing others as well. They were all there for that as well. And then even in the 40k side of things, a lot of 40k players might actually be tentatively interested in Heresy or the background at least. So quite a few know After Eleanor as well. So I left my days fairly open and spent a lot of time talking to people, random people half the time, because, they'd say, oh, they like the show or whatever, things like that. But also, I forgot to say, one of the guys I met out there was an artist, D. I'll try and get his details actually on the show notes or somewhere, bring it out next time. He was there he's got an online comic, and he was there doing sketches, and the whole thing he was doing was I'll do a sketch for you and you can pay me what you think it's worth. And I was like, well, I could get me as a Space Wolf. So I did, because that's never going to happen from Forge World or G-Dub. So,
true.
So I was like, yeah. And drew this lovely picture, and I paid him, what I thought it was worth, and he was happy and I was happy. And I was like, cool. And he was there doing that all the time. And we started talking about, and, Heresy had been playing like 40k out of it, that kind of thing, back into it. And now he started listening to After Illinois. I think we've got him hooked on Heresy. But
awesome.
It was really cool. It's quite manic. It's 4 days. There's a lot going on, and you can just burn yourself to the ground, which is pretty much what I did for 4 days, without actually doing specific events. I was just constantly like chatting to people here, there, and that's a massive part of the fun for me.
It does sound like, there's obviously a massive amount of people go, because I was watching Twitter while you're over there and just picking up, and so many people were over there and were tweeting about what was going on, and it does sound quite amazing with all those different people there. And obviously for us, I haven't been, but if I ever was to go, it would almost feel like a bit of a fish out of water, I think, because we're so used to events in the UK, I think maybe we're used to the same type of events, maybe, where it's a little bit the same sort of setup each time. We know what we're going to go and see, whereas that sounds as though it's much bigger, much more going on, and maybe a little bit more overwhelming than we're probably used to.
The first time at something like that, when I went to Gen Con, which is a general gaming convention, which is much more focused around board games and card games and role-playing games. There's still miniatures there as well. I kind of went the first time and was like, right, all I feel I've done is prepared myself to come again, because Gen Con is massive. So, but Adepticon, I was lucky the first time in that the Warhammer community was so good on Twitter that I walked into the room and I knew 30, 40 people. And when you walk in with an English accent into that environment, people find it easy to identify you. So I had that advantage where I wasn't just that, new guy who's new to Warhammer walking in, doesn't really know anyone. And that is a big advantage, but it is intimidating a little bit, as you say, you walk in and there's so much going on. We have the UK Games Expo. I've never been, but I've heard it's quite good, but a number of people have said it's a little bit disappointing because it's not like this big convention in the same way they do it in America. And that's because they got the space. They've got to hire out the kind of space they had over here would be astronomical. And I'm sure it is over there, but over here would be probably completely prohibitive to do it. It would be so expensive. And that Shambo Hotel's not cheap. From the bar, I was paying $4.50 for a Coke.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, that's not even a pint of Coke, and they third fill it with ice, So I was a bit careful, but anyone who's been to one of these, all the guys bring a load of drinks with them, and some fruit, because otherwise you tend to eat all the fast food, all the burgers and the chips, or fries, as they would say. So yeah, there is an element of that. If you were out there by yourself, that could be quite intimidating that first time. But once you're into it, once you start talking to people, then, you create those connections. And I walked into that room again and saw people that I hadn't seen. The only time I've ever met them was 3 years ago. And it was like, I haven't seen you for ages, have a chat and boom, straight back into it again, which is really good. But it's a very different atmosphere from the individual events. You're walking around looking at game systems, you have no idea what they are. But that's cool, I quite like that. And sometimes you can pick up ideas from them. Sometimes you can pick up ideas from model lines, A lot of the smaller ones are still metal, so that's me out. Not bothered.
Yeah, but, straight away.
But there's enough resin and plastic stuff out there as well. There's loads of cool stuff. It's hard for me to explain. I'm probably missing out on like loads of little bits and pieces, but it's manic. There's people everywhere. And where they have that I assume it's the same shop every year. They literally have like the cases I used to carry around my Warhammer in, like those kind of boxes which are about, I don't know, 2.5 foot long by 1.5 foot wide, and they're just full of bits. And on the front it will say like Tau, and there'll just be Tau bits. So around this place, particularly early on, you just get people sitting on the floor rifling through bits, trying to find like the little nuggets, just in the middle of the corridor, which is kind of cool. And then you get the cosplay as well, so you get a little bit of cosplay. Guys dressing up, particularly for the team tournament, because there's like the best display, but also the best embodiment of your faction or whatever they're doing. So 4 guys bought one of the Chaos Gods each to 40k, and then dressed up as cultists of those 4 Chaos Gods, and which was pretty cool. Yeah, and then we had I think they're fairly regular there. There's an orc band that turn up with their electric guitars, and then some girl dressed as Catwoman walking around, and there was, a few others. There's a lot going on because of the variety in that space, which is really cool. And some of the events are more serious than others. So, the guys who ran the Heresy, the Grey and Legion guys, hopefully we've got an interview with Mark on this episode if it comes out, because I recorded it. We sat down in the corridor. We tried to put a big pillar between us and everyone else and try and chat about that and the Nova Open. But those guys running that Heresy event, as I say, they have this stream of events on this campaign. They had a big map with poker chips and then like big pawns to move around to show control. But outside of that, we had, I say, the Zone Mortalis. So I played in the Zone Mortalis event, which was it was only 5 hours, which is what I wanted, because it allowed me to go and do other things, have a lay-in. And then I played in the Heresy doubles with Kenny Lull from Combat Phase as well. So the Zone Mortalis was brilliant. These guys make all this terrain as well. It's the other problem we got. It's probably actually the bigger problem, is they store this terrain like a few hours drive away in the middle of, one of those states where there's nothing except for a load of big storage where, but
yeah, just like loads of space.
Yeah. And for us to do that would be hiring somewhere down in, I don't know, middle of flipping West Country. And then you'd have to go and drive it somewhere, which would be a nightmare over here. But yeah, they got a load of guys with licenses for big trucks, and they drive it all up, and then they put out, it means they can put out 100 odd tables for Warhammer or 40k with all the terrain on there. And the Heresy ones were great. The Zone Mortalis they had some third party Zone Mortalis stuff, like the wooden structures, and then they made some other ones out of like Necromunda-esque terrain, which is all third party. And then some others were like, they made the first one I played on was was just these rocky outcrops designed to represent like mountain peaks almost, as it were. So like the valleys, so the wind would be blowing between the valleys and stuff like that. So actually that was quite cool to think about, Zone Mortalis in a different way than I normally would.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
But the tables look great because, the Heresy, they want the tables to look great. They want all the stuff to look great. Same with 40k, same with Age of Sigmar. They're harder with them because they're more tournament-y based, so people want functionality as well. But, no, the Heresy stuff was really cool. And so I played in that little tournament, little event. It wasn't even a tournament because one thing they did really well, which I quite liked, was you got a VP token for every victory point you scored in game. And at the end of the game, no matter who won or lost, you took your own and chucked it into whichever cup you were. So Traitor, you chucked it in the Traitor Cup. And then if you're a Loyalist, chucked in the Loyalist Cup. And at the end of it, they just totaled up who had the most VPs.
Good way. Simple way of doing it.
It was a really simple way, actually. And had I read the pack properly and maybe realised they were doing that, it encourages you to go for all the VPs around the table and stuff like that. But they'd also, for this, because it's narrative, every single table had its own, or every single style of table had its own rules and missions. So, as I say, this one was like, you got bonuses for being on higher on terrain than your opponent. So someone shooting at someone higher than them was a -1 ballistic skill. And then actually, because it's one of those games, I set up, I put all my models down and I was told to choose a table, so I just sat down, didn't read any of the rules. And some bloke came and sat opposite me. I was like, "Hi, how you doing?" Whatever. And, what you got? Horus. I got, Sons of Horus. I was like, "Oh, cool." And I've literally got like 6 Thalax, 1 Vorax, and a Magus Dominus who can't do anything. And he proceeds to get out, 5-man autocannon team, and then veterans with 2 heavy bolters. And I'm like, well, that just kills Vorax and Thalax. So this is going to be the worst game ever for like both of us. It's just going to be dull. And then we read the pack, and my jetpack troops were getting bonuses all the time they were on terrain. And so it was like, oh, we've got a chance here. And then also they allowed the recycling of units as well. So, yeah, it kind of game went on. Our dice, both of our dice were awful as well. But it actually went on that it turned into this, somehow turned into this quite balanced game where, essentially the thing that won it for me was, managing to roll low enough on my initiative and my mechanicum to be able to stand and shoot at full ballistic skill with, a photon thruster, a strength 6 AP2 gun with blind. Right? It's a bit different when you're hitting on 3s rather than 6s. But yeah, it was a really cool game, and it you could see by the table and by the rules that it felt like you were in this dangerous zone. But it wasn't a kind of, as we say, we tend to think of the classic Zone Mortalis, the shipboarding actions, things like that.
Yeah, the corridors and the confined spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. The next game actually worked slightly differently in that I went to a table and sat down. I was like, oh, cool, there's some Necromunda style terrain. I'll sit there. And there's this lovely World Eaters army that was just, I put the photo up online. I showed you, and it had less models than I did for starters. I was like, oh, blimey, this could be good. But he managed to sit down on a table where speed mattered, and he had Cataphractii Terminators. So, and basically we were supposed to race to the highest point on this table, and I'm like, oh, I've got Thalax. This might be quite easy. And it turned out to be easy enough to get the win, although the win wasn't big. But it was a good fun game. Again, we had this was like an Underhive style thing. So, I think every shot had a 4-up chance of being ignored no matter what. So before you rolled any saves, it was just like on a 4-up, just discount them. So, yeah. And then if you were over 12 inches, it was on a 3-up. So, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, he's got Terminators and some awful dice, which was sad but quite funny at the same time. But I've got Thalax going, right, okay, on a 4-up I ignore them. On a 4-up I get a save, and then on a 6-up I get my feel no pain. Okay. But it was a mismatch of armies which made the game less fun, but it was cool. It was, again, really good to see the tables, to see the catastrophic, tables that were different on each terrain piece, and to play some cool opponents.
Yeah, and I suppose you're seeing a lot of people that you would have never bumped into in the UK.
Oh, yeah, so big time. So, yeah, neither of the first 2 guys listened to the show or anything like that, and in fact, was chatting because the World Eaters was so lovely. The gentleman's won some Golden Demons. I think he's won some swords. Chris Borer. So he's got a blog. And I can't remember what it's called now. Again, I'll try and get that in the notes because he's, goes through some stuff, and he said he's going to try and get up some better pictures of his World Eaters because I just took a few pictures on my phone quick. And they deserve better than that, really, because they were that nice. But yeah.
They did look lovely from the picture you sent me.
That's it, yeah. We're Facebook friends now. So, you chat to the guys we're playing and kind of find, he's a nice guy, cool. Let's stay in contact because you never know. I might need some advice on painting World Eaters at some point. So always.
Well, you might sack off the painting person you've got involved and need a new one.
Too right, yeah. One who's won more swords. But I mean, to be fair to him, he did say, I won mine a few years ago. Still a very, very, very quality painter, and I still think he can compete. But they were saying that they've noticed in America over the last 4 or 5 years the standards jumped.
Yeah, well, it used to be a running joke that if you wanted to win a Golden Demon, you went to America.
Oh, was it?
Because it was as like even Alan Merritt used to say it to people when they used to come up to him and say, "Well, how can I win a Golden Demon?" And he used to say, "Well, go to America," because the standard was so low over there.
Well, then,
you could pick one.
Yeah, less, a smaller pool, I suppose, to draw from as well.
Well, they did multiples in those days. They had they had like 3 or 4 in America a year. Full events with like 10 categories.
Okay.
In each competition, and it was a case of there were always ones that they struggled to get 3 entries for.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but his stuff was deserving from what I see. So a very, very good painter, and he makes his own miniatures, I think, as well. So
cool.
Very cool. And then the last game I actually went down and went, well, I kind of want to play proper Zone Mortalis, so I jumped onto one of the board sections and got to play another guy this guy actually had got some contact with, and my mind's gone. I'm so tired in recovering from David Broughton. Yeah, that's the guy. I think he's it might be him. I'm trying to remember. Yes, that's the guy. Just checking it out. It's a bit of Facebook stalking. So an English guy who lives in America, and he had Alpha Legion infiltrating on the mission where a lot of them, we had to split our forces on this one, and I'm like, okay, the idea is to get all the way across the board, and I can come on halfway up the table, and I've got Thalax. It's like, again, I've got so much speed in the army, but what he could do is just deploy 6 inches away from my lone Magus Dominus and kill it, getting my Warlord and 3 units into the deployment zone, and it's like, oh, that's going to be tough. But my Vorax was giving it a damn good go. My Vorax was on fire this game, and then turn 5 it ended. Had I got the turn 6, it would have been very, very interesting. But it was great to play on a proper table. Let's say it's a third party thing, but again, a very different feel. We had part of it, the ship voiding into space and all those kind of things going on as well, and quite a tense battle. And you think there were another 3 or 4 different table types to play on as well. So there was so much scope. It was really good. I think everyone really enjoyed themselves playing it. There was a lot of chatting and shouting and what have you. And I really enjoyed what they did. Really did. And these guys have been running some Heresy events for quite a long time, so they know what they're doing by now, and there's a few of them, which is a major factor in that, and they put on a really good event.
It sounds like they've got their organisation and everything really well run over there.
Yeah, well, you see that with the main narrative drag. They literally had like a 6-foot map, and they had stars, planets on it, and poker chips, black and white ones, depending on which side you were on, and they were throwing them down onto, controlled planets and things like that. So that was pretty cool. I kind of wish I'd gone up and kind of paid a bit more attention to what they were doing with that. I might have to kind of email them and ask for a few more details, because it was really cool. It was really cool, but it's the kind of thing you do need that organisation and the support of more than one person to be able to do it.
Mm.
But everyone seemed to be having a great laugh in that. They had a huge game on, I think it was the Saturday night. I was like, I'm not a massive fan of huge games on long tables, because it just feels a bit, you end up only playing the 2 people like opposite you, 2 or 3 people opposite you anyway, and I always find it drags a little bit long. But there was loads of cool events. I say we played in the doubles on the last day, Kenny and I. So, one fun thing about this was we wrote our lists completely independently, not bothered at all. And that wasn't an issue per se. It decent. His Mechanicum were okay, and he had a Pride of the Legion Death Guard. So we had a Spartan, 2 1,500 point lists. And we played JP and Mark from Age of Darkness with their pretty defensive militia list. And everything was kind of like in the balance. We were doing okay. And then Kenny had a bit of a mind kind of fart in that I was like, okay, we need to worry about getting into this combat and sorting it out. Your Terminators can sort this combat out. It's not a problem. Won't worry about it. So I go off and start shooting on my side of the table, and he's shooting on his. And then out the corner of my eye, I'm thinking, he's shooting that unit up there. What's he shooting them with? I didn't think he had anything to shoot them with. And the unit that was supposed to be assaulting a different combat, was instead shooting some people in some terrain. I was like, no, you've done it wrong. And I think he was thinking a little bit of Age of Sigmar at the time, in which you can do that. And it was like, oh, well, and I'm like, no, it's what's happened. But unfortunately, that meant that I had to, run my Castellax into the fight instead. And he was using the special character, Jovian, the medic from the Gurney set.
Oh, right, yeah.
With the special character rules, and he's got an instant death weapon that's strength 8 at initiative.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So my Castellax didn't last long in that fight, unfortunately. And they, we were still in the game. It was a good tight game. I think it was like turn 3. We didn't do a lot with our shooting, and that kind of decided the game. They had a super heavy running round. They had a Malcador running round, and we just couldn't hit it. Like my Thalax with Melter Gun missed 4 out of 5 shots, and my Thalax with his Photon Thruster probably hit 7 out of 10 shots. So probably missed 7 out of 10 shots as well. But it's all, that's dice game, isn't it? JP was a bit JP was a bit taken aback when my Archimagos Prime eventually got in contact with his Malcador Infernus and just destroyed the whole thing with consummate ease. But it was a bit too little too late, unfortunately, and they just slid into a major victory against us. But that was good fun. It was quite interesting. At various times, Kenny was with me, and Kenny was very tired. So I'm not digging at Kenny. He was very tired, and Kenny and JP would be warbling about something. Me and Mark would be playing the game. It was like, what's going on? Okay, we'll do that. And every now and then, Mark would be like, what are you doing, JP? No, do that. And I'll be like, Kenny, what are you doing? Do this. But yeah, no, it was a good game against those guys. The first time, got to meet them properly, which is good. Because, again, it's putting a voice to a face. And if you'd asked me to draw them before seeing them, they wouldn't have looked much like that, which is always fun as well. But yeah, that was a cracking game, and there was no, the scenarios were good in here. They were narrative. They were fun. It wasn't as heavily set on special rules. I don't know how they drew opponents, but we ended up playing a guy and a girl who live locally to the event, who I can't remember the lass's name, unfortunately. She painted up her Emperor's Children in like the 3 weeks before the event, and some of the troops, particularly, all base colours, they were done quite well. We were playing that and some Solar Auxilia, and those games where someone's dice just don't work. Yeah, it's bad. It was bad at this point for them. We somehow just, I don't quite know what happened. I mean, it was always going to be an interesting fight, but apart from their Infernus, struggling again, this thing was on one whole point for 2 turns, and we just couldn't hit it. But apart from that, everything just went wrong for them. They were failing 7 out of 10 armor saves, on just standard marine armor saves, stuff like that. You're never coming back from that kind of stuff. If it happens 2 or 3 times, you're in trouble. So Kenny had a bit of fun time wandering over and shooting stuff with all the shots that actually the Terminators from Death Guard can put out, and I was wandering around shooting stuff with my big monsters, and that was a bit of a fun game. But again, not too tactically challenging. And our final game we played a couple of great guys. There's Ultramarines and Dark Angels, and all the Dark Angels were on bikes, pretty much, or a couple of land speeders. It was like, oh, this could be an interesting game. And then they open up with the jet bikes with his poison rounds and the random AP value.
Yes, the acid shots.
Yes, that's the ones. And he opens up on my Castellax, immediately rolls a 2 for his AP.
Nice, as you want. Yeah.
I got a little bit lucky in that he didn't do too much. He killed 1.5, I think. But, it could have been a lot worse. And we kind of pushed at them. And then all of a sudden I was like, actually, my Thanatar's really good in this game. I was like, yeah, they're disappear some jet bikes. And then the Thalax starts shooting them again, and he's like, well, I've already jinked. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really mean much. When Thalax are making you a -2 to your cover saves. And Kenny was just laying down just like template after template on units of bikes. And because their high armor save was coming out of it having done no wounds. But, yeah, they used a brilliant thing of having 4 rhinos and a predator, I think. But none of the troops were in the rhinos, so they just drove them up in front of our army and turned them sideways and created this wall of rhinos. But because Kenny's playing Pride of the Legion and because I'm playing Mechanicum, we don't have a huge amount of troops. And I was like, well, I can still see over the top of these rhinos, and I need to be shooting the stuff that's killing us. And I can't afford to dedicate a unit to blow a hole through. So we actually ended up just staying behind these rhinos for most of the game, just to use them as a shield back our way. It was really weird. It was
double whammy.
Yeah, it was really strange. I would love to have gone through them, but that would have been a whole turn of like my Castellax not shooting a unit that was going to shoot them, or my Thalax not like taking the final whole point off a Sakaran, or it was that kind of thing. And it was like, actually, it's just more important that I stop me dying than it is to get through this line. They're a great bunch of lads, had great fun against them as well. We went into that event with, as I say, we didn't plan anything. It was like, Kenny, what are you bringing? Death Guard. Okay, I'll bring my Mechanicum. We'll work something out. And we'll just roll from there, knowing that we could really struggle against some army lists. But actually, I didn't see all the tables, but it seemed to be people were like controlled in what they were taking. There was nothing that seemed to be trying to break the game or get ahead of any kind of meta or anything like that. People had good units, but then everyone's going to have a good unit, aren't they? It's not a major issue.
It's no fun if everyone just takes soft stuff and it's all a bit squishy.
No, the lass had Eidolon with a bunch of Terminators, which again, that's nothing over the top, in a Spartan, because we had a Spartan with Death Shroud in it, and a Praetor. But yeah, it seemed to be cool. It was very chill. The only problem with that event was there were timing issues. And we ended up having like half hour for lunch and no break between second and third game. And it was like a bit Sunday morning, everyone's shattered, like no opportunity to get any decent food and drink in you. And then you're having to play it all the way through. But I think everyone still had fun, kept their spirits up. And Kenny and I got Players Judged Award. I think it's a weird wording, but I think we got favourite opponents.
Right, okay.
Because I think we got them all 3 of our opponents, which was awesome, which was quite a surprise. Because I think just mainly our bickering at each other might have helped that. me trying to control Kenny, and Kenny trying to tell me to shut up and get on with my own game and things like that. But yeah, no, it was good fun. And it seemed to reflect, there were people there who played in like as many of those Heresy events as possible, and they seemed to enjoy it just as much as any of the other ones. that were going on. Yeah, it was simple but well done, well executed, and fun. And I think that's pretty much what you want from a Heresy event. You don't want it to get too complicated or too drawn out or anything like that.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So the only problem with that one was normally, and with doubles they could drag on a little bit longer than singles as well. But normally, like last time I was at Adepticon, I was finishing my games like half hour before the round ended, and then take your half hour between rounds. All of a sudden you got an hour and you can go and look round at other stuff. But because on the Sunday that didn't happen, and I was actually trying to that last game I was desperately trying to get round to go and see people who were getting ready to go home because their events had finished. So that was a bit frustrating, but that's a minor, it's one of those things that's going to happen. But that's one of the reasons why I kept a lot of my weekend free, was because I wanted to be socialising a lot of the time. And I helped out at Age of Sigmar. I helped out Mark a load of lists on the Thursday, and then we played in the doubles on the Friday. And David and I were asked to be on Warhammer Live, so we got our little moment of fame at Warhammer Live against Relian and Domus, who are two great guys from out of the Midwest as well. And I got to watch it back today. It was quite fun.
Was that good? Was it good to watch? Or
Yeah, it was.
Was it like, were you sort of watching it through your fingers?
No, I never had. I mean, we wrote our list independently. I borrowed an army. I'd never picked up the Sylvaneth book before that game that I played live. And I realised by turn 2 that I could have deployed slightly differently, but we were still up against. It was one of those matchups where, they had the advantage and the scenario worked to their advantage as well. But we don't have the benefit of listening to Rob and Eddie. You can't hear what they're saying.
So you're literally just playing the game.
Yeah, so we were playing the game, shouting. Basically, essentially, GW had at least one of their cases turned back at customs. So they use headset mics so the players can inform Eddie and that of what's going on in the game. So instead of that, we had Nick sat by our table writing it down and handing information was going on the computer to them. So we were having to slow down to tell Nick what was going on, but we can't hear Eddie and Rob. And listening back to it, there's some brilliant moments. And, it was, I was really interested in what the chat was saying as well, because, they could quite easily have slammed David and I, whilst not understanding exactly what we were doing, because we'd basically accepted that if the other guys play well, we're not going to win the scenario, and they were two good players. So the chances are, barring the run of the luck, we weren't going to win the scenario. So we'll make sure we pick up our secondary and tertiary objectives and get as many points as possible, whilst making a good game of it and putting pressure on. And, the key moments, my dice failed me. They were building up one of my units for about 10 minutes, and then when it ran in, it did nothing. And it's like, oh. and those kind of things could swing a game, can't they? When your big Terminator unit goes in and does nothing, then you're left hanging in the breeze. So, but it's good to read the chat and see kind of the reactions of what was going on. A good experience, and one I'll have to try and maybe get up and jump on again, I think, because it's very different. Very aware of my hands now when I play, because that's all you can see from the top.
Oh, well, of course, Put your hands down, of course.
Yeah, so all that kind of stuff. But that was really good. I didn't play a huge amount of Heresy. I'd love to go into all the Heresy for you. I suspect if you listen to the Vangarian Heresy, Age of Darkness, and Forgotten Legion, and there was others there as well. Then Sean from Seize the Initiatives, one I forgot. There's probably more. Then you're going to hear more about more of the Heresy events, because I was spread over everything else. So, go and check them out over the next week or 2 weeks. because, yeah, but I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people who mainly I know or know of me via Warhammer and 40k, or know through friends of friends, talking about stuff, and actually talking about Heresy a lot with a lot of them as well, because of the podcast, which is always good. And a few people asking where you were.
That's nice to hear.
Whether you would ever get out there. You know, I think you've got to test your mettle against the Crystal Brush guys.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the results of that on. Yeah, I think it was on Instagram. It looked like some really amazing stuff out there.
You can go and check them out at Cool Mini or not. The Space Wolf, Scratch Build Space Wolf guy won it, I think.
Yeah, well, it was. I saw that. Yeah, that guy won the overall prize, and I noticed again that was a joint venture.
Yeah.
Of sculptor and painter. So as we said before, you know, that's quite, you know, a tough feat, isn't it? Because you've then got it's a big uphill struggle.
Yeah, well, you know, absolutely, he's got to do the right thing. There were some I was almost surprised. I thought the Kairos was going to win it at one point. Really, a model you could almost miss as you look past it. But there were so many real quality entries, and when the price is $10,000, they're going to be, you know. Yeah,
and I mean, the Nagash was getting a lot of coverage on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I was actually talking to an English Warhammer guy who was like, "Oh, we only do best painted." And I said, "Yeah, it's a shame you don't do best appearance." And he said, "It's the same thing." I said, "No, it's not." And fundamentally, that Nagash for me is like one of the best appearance. But they vote for best painted. That's, you know, Crystal Brush is the best painted. So, yes. Yeah, there's a fundamental difference between the two, but a lot of people's eyes were really drawn to Nagash. He looked fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
And I wish I got there more often. I wish I went and saw some of the hobby hangout guys a bit more, and, yeah. But there's so much to do. You are always going to miss out on doing you know, some things, and I almost the staying up late to get more time in actually hinders you in doing other stuff. So I don't know if it's worth it. I should have been a bit more strict on my bedtimes. But,
remember that for next year.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe. But it was literally like meeting some other podcasters like Ashley from 40k Radio. Spent a lot of time talking to her about, you know, about podcasting, about you know, being where we are in the hobby as podcasters and being like recognizable and those kind of things, and then, you know, everything else that we share in common that we were going, and then as well as all the other stuff, and then from there walking past someone else and stopping, oh, how did you get on? And then you go into a conversation with them, and, you know, you can do that all the way up the corridors if you want, and it becomes real tricky to get to bed on time. I feel sorry for the Warhammer TV crew, that, you know, the live crew guys were playing in events, they were running seminars, they were organising the TV, they were doing everything. So, plus trying to have a good time, but while working. So I think Rob put up a picture on Twitter today of them getting the minibus back from the hotel, from the airport. And all but him were asleep.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised at all.
Believe it.
Yeah, believe it. Every single one of them looked pretty stressed out on Friday when they were having to go out and buy equipment because of the stuff that got turned back at customs and things like that. So, but yeah, it's an experience, and I'm sure there are people listening to this saying, "Oh, the LVO's just as good," or Nova, or TempleCon, or, you know, whatever other cons they've got going on over there. But Adepticon's the one that I know I'm going to know a lot of people at Adepticon, so it's always going to be hard for me to do something else. But Vegas is calling at some point.
Yes,
I
indeed.
I don't think it'll be next year, but at some point I want to do Vegas. The only problem with that is it's similar time to Heresy Weekender. So it's always a bit of a kicker.
Yeah, that's always would be my fear.
But yeah, who knows? Yeah, and it's great, and it's talking to a number of guys over there who were talking about coming to England and how to do it, what to do. I went out, I had a day in Chicago. I got into Chicago Monday, had a whole day to myself in Chicago, went and did the shed, the film museum to go and see all the dinosaurs and all the aquatic animals, going eat, ended up at a blues bar, Buddy Guy's blues bar, and then went over to the hotel, to do a bit of that. So I got to do a little bit of sightseeing as well, which I think next time I won't bother with Adepticon because I've been downtown Chicago a few times now. So I could go straight to venue. Save a couple of days of paying out on that, because at the end of the day, it's not cheap. I booked my airplane ticket as soon as I got my entrance ticket. So, and I booked my hotel at the same time as well. So my flight was £380 return direct, which is ridiculous, really. But
that is, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, you can still pick that up for £450 quite easily. The hotel's expensive, but I had 2 people sharing it with me. Before we've had 5 in a room to help keep the cost down on the hotel, and then it's food, and that venue isn't cheap. But as I say, pick up a big can of Diet Cokes or whatever, and a load of snacks, keep in your room, and you're going to save a lot of money on eating out. Eat the right meals at the right prices. You can fill up on breakfast, which again wasn't cheap, but it was a big buffet, so you can crack on. And you can do it without having to spend an absolute fortune. It's still expensive, but it's not an absolute fortune.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's tactically trying to find the right way of doing things, isn't it? Because I do think that even like we've discussed it with Heresy Weekend, there are cheaper ways of doing it. And if you want to save a few pounds, you can easily go around the right way of doing it and just be tactical. If you're going to buy everything in the hotel, you are going to pay a premium. Yeah, and sometimes again, you have to decide. Like for those kind of events, I recommend staying at the venue. So like I think Friday or Saturday, it was thundering down. It was thunder and lightning and everything, but I never left the hotel. So it didn't affect me at all. And you have that advantage. You also have the advantage of, particularly at a venue like that, it's like, I'm shattered and I've got nothing to do now from like midday till 4. I'll go and have a sleep for an hour and a half, or have a shower, go up, have a shower, come back refreshed. So there's always an advantage to doing that. Now at things like Adepticon, Gen Con, the big conventions, those hotel rooms go quick. I mean, I had no problem. I literally just booked everything up. I went, ding, da, ding, da, ding. Oh, I've missed that one. Ding. Okay. Bye. Yes. Thank you very much. Other people were like, by the time I got through the system, this ticket had expired. So I had to go back through the system. And then because I did that, the next one had expired and it was terrible. Maybe it was luck, but I had none of those issues. I got a room at the hotel with no problem at all. The only thing I had to do was stay up late to be online to do it. Yes.
And you have to make those sacrifices. You have to work out a system, either get someone else to do it for you or do it, or literally just, there was one point I was like, well, I could just go to sleep, wake up for an hour and a half, and then go back to sleep, You just have to work it out, plan it, be prepared for it. But it's not difficult. You just have to be aware. And I think there's going to be a few articles on the Warhammer community about various different things. It might be more Warhammer focused than other things, but there might be some interesting stuff, people's ideas and stuff as well. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got to say from Adepticon. As I say, on the Heresy side of it, I think the Age of Darkness guys particularly will be reporting it more depth than I did.
Yes, and by the sounds of it, there's a lot to cover, so there's bound to be lots of other points of view and things that people saw and all that sort of stuff. And also, I play all the game systems. I play all GW game systems. I could quite happily play some 40k as well in the right event, because the actual singles event is cutthroat to the point where
was it even in the doubles they have like army type, and on the listing of it, it's just got a load of slashes, so they can fit in all the different army types, where they have all the things, you know. But you see some strange things, but you see some amazing things. Like a bloke had the large Eldar Wraith Knight who made it into a sensual Wraith Knight, so he bought a second one to make back legs for it, to make it into the sensual.
Oh, cool.
And it's just a normal Wraith Knight, you know, or what have you. And there's just these beautiful conversions and I say the display boards and loads of stuff. These guys made a pre-Heresy Thousand Suns army, and they were painted blue, but hey, but they had 2 demon princes were the tutelaries, and they had this see-through kind of plastic to represent them, but they'd put on all the different symbols on the shoulder pads to represent the different cults and things like that. There was, you know, some real attention to detail, particularly in the team event, because there's that big kind of prize for best display. But there's so much cool stuff. GW put a load of pictures up on Facebook on the various things. They got the stuff from Warhammer Twitch, on Warhammer Live on Twitch, where they were talking to various people as well. And they've got some of the community articles. And I'm sure we're going to get more. I know Duncan was just constantly in demand by people walking up to him. And Rob was loving it as well. And Eddie, they were all enjoying meeting everyone else as well, who seemed to be excited to be there. Yeah, it's fantastic. Fantastic. I say maybe not next year, unless I win the lottery or something, because next time I might have to take the missus. So that extends.
Oh, double expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And it's finding something for her to do as well while I'm gaming. But it'd be easy in Vegas. She can spend her own money. But yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't think, unless you've got anything specific you want to know or ask or think of a.
I can't think so. I mean, it's something I want to try and get out to go to at some stage. But for me, it's trying to understand the event, and I think you've covered that pretty well. So it'd be interesting to see if I can ever make it to Adepticon.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't think you could ever truly appreciate it until you're there. As I say, I'm lucky in that I knew even from 3 years ago so many people that I could walk in and be part of it. And not everyone's going to have that, but you can have it if you get involved in the right communities. So there were plenty of people from 30k forums that were there, people from podcasts, you know. You could reach out to those podcasts and say, look, I'm going to be there, you know, I don't know anyone else, you know, on the Friday, is there any chance of maybe playing a game? And if they're free, they might be doing it, you know, because there's loads of space for pickup games as well. So you can go and just take an army, and Carl Tuttle from the independent characters, I think he only had about 2 or 3 things really booked in. He just played a load of pickup games around it and kind of left his schedule quite open. So I think similar to the way that I wanted to do things, he meets a lot of people there that he doesn't get to spend a lot of time with. So he likes to be able to make sure that he doesn't miss out on that. Plus the gaming can just tire you out as well.
Yes, I can imagine it does. Especially
if you take it seriously. The less seriously you take it, the less tiring it can be. But there we go. We're going to leave Adepticon. That is our Adepticon coverage. We're going to come back. I'm sure next show will be onto something a bit more kind of focused. But this was a distinct lack of time between Durham and Adepticon, and then Adepticon and needing the episode out. So this is why we haven't seen Michael in a couple of episodes. He'll be back. We'll be talking about Fabius Bile and stuff like that. But we'll go and wrap up the show. So I'm here with Mark Rayleigh, who is one of the organisers of the Heresy events at Adepticon. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. if you can hear some noise, we are recording in a corridor on the floor at Adepticon. Hopefully, we've got a pillar trying to break some of that noise up, but it's a very busy place. We're in a huge hotel compared to the one that they used to be in. Expansion has been quite.
It is indeed. It gets bigger every year, and yep, they needed a bigger venue a couple of years ago. And now we're in a big convention center.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant venue, and we've talking about expansion. The Heresy events have grown. So I was at the last year of the last venue, and I remember hunting for the Heresy events, which was like one line of tables or something in a room next to Age of Sigmar, which if you didn't go in there, like some of these rooms I haven't been in yet, you miss out. But this year you've been kind of added on to the end of where the 40k guys are playing.
Yep.
And you've got quite a few rows.
We've doubled in size every year, and I think the plastic box sets have really brought a lot of people in, not surprisingly. And yeah, we've gotten much bigger. Or, some days we've got, I don't know, in various events going on at once, we probably have 70, 80 players at once. And so yeah, it's come a long way from when it was, 16 people in a tournament or whatever.
Yeah. And people are like, what's this game?
Right.
All of a sudden they know what the Heresy is. They've got an idea. And your group has been running that for the whole time, isn't it?
Yeah, our little group, we call ourselves the Graying Legion. It's my friend Ty Finosharo. He's kind of started us all down this path. And it's myself, Mark Rayleigh, our friend John Schaefer, Nate Taylor, Robin Everett McGirrell, and a few other fellows have been helping us out this year as we've gotten bigger and bigger. But yeah, we've been running the Heresy events here for the last, I guess, 3 years now, and it's going well. I'm tired, but I'm happy. I'm having a good time.
Have at any point have you thought, I want to play next year?
Actually, my friend Dave Powells and I pinky swore that next year we're going to play in a team event together. So I've got to make a lot of progress on my Blood Angels, my next army I'm working on.
Oh, excellent. There's always the next army. Yeah, right. Excellent. So that's cool, because there's a lot of enjoyment out of running an event.
Sure.
But it's a different enjoyment, isn't it?
Right. It's funny. It's more work, but in a way, at least once I'm at the event, I find it less... I'm less anxious. It's easy. I don't have to be quite as on all the time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, it's.
I find tournaments exhausting personally.
Yeah. It's amazing how a load of gamers can be immense hassle in between the games.
Sure.
And then once the game starts, everything quiets down
until
you get the odd question. But actually, it's quite nice to just chill out. And
it's a lot of work, but you can do most of it up front.
Yeah, exactly. And I must admit, I've had people say, "I must be so hard running an event," and I'm like, I've been watching the cricket on the iPad or something like that in between. Don't let all the secrets out, I suppose. So yeah, absolutely. Say from when I joined to now, and people talking about the Heresy events here as well. Everyone speaks very highly of them. So congrats to all of you guys who do that, and thanks to all of you guys for putting it on as well. Because as I say, all the time you're running an event, you can't play in it, and it is rewarding. There is a definite feeling of reward for running an event.
It's great to be part of something that's bigger than you and your own army or whatever.
It's for quite a few years actually. I kind of held back from helping out. I was more of a consumer, but then you get the bug, and then all of a sudden you're doing all the providing. But it still takes work. It still takes work. As you say, it's the months beforehand when you're finishing off the pack, and you're like, it's not quite right, and deadlines are coming, and
building terrain, and
everything else. Thankfully, I've avoided that bit. But brilliant. But we're going to hear, as you said, we got people from everywhere.
We've got Freddie from Sweden, yourself from the UK, a couple guys from Australia, right?
Yeah, friend Scott on the... I'm going to shout him out. He's friends with the Eye of Horus guys.
Right.
And he's a cracking guy, and I've been walking around meeting all kinds of people from all parts of America and Canada and, as you say, across Europe.
And my friend Celso is here from Mexico again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Adepticon is one of those events which attracts people. Yep. But the fact they're coming, those guys are coming just for the Heresy events.
Yeah.
You enjoy Adepticon, but they're playing Heresy almost all weekend, most of those guys.
We've definitely got an international group coming from far and wide. At this
no,
point.
it's really good. So you're going to hear about the event on all the podcasts, I'm sure, over the next few weeks. So if you're more interested about Adepticon, listen to those. The other thing we want to talk to you about is you're also involved with helping out at the Nova Open.
That is correct.
Something I've mentioned on the show a couple of times. But do you want to tell us a little bit about the Nova Open?
Sure. The Nova Open is a tabletop convention similar to Adepticon. It takes place outside Washington, D.C. This year it will be August 31st through September 3rd, 2017. That's Labor Day weekend for us Americans. It's probably half to 2/3 the size of Adepticon. I don't know, but it's a nice size, and it's in a really nice hotel. It's just outside DC, so you can take the subway in and do the sites there if you want, and go to the Smithsonian Museum.
Particularly useful if you're bringing a partner who's not so into the gaming.
Absolutely. And they were originally known for sort of very competitive tournaments was their thing. But as they've gotten bigger, just naturally they've diversified, and there's all kinds of. There's a guy won amazing Lord of the Rings events, with more players than I ever would have imagined there could be. And X-Wing and Malifaux and everything. And they've also got a really great painting seminar thing going on. The guys from Massive Voodoo, Rafa and Roman come over. And they actually have a very nice painting competition as well. So, I mean, it's definitely a good con if it works for your schedule.
As always, and money and time allowing.
Sure.
As with all these things. And the other thing Nova are very big on is the charity support as well.
Absolutely.
So I think we've mentioned their charity raffles.
They do a couple of armies they raffle off every year, which I've participated in the last couple of years, painted some units for, and we're hoping to do some tie-ins between our Heresy events and the charity fundraiser this year as well.
Excellent. So. Yeah, that's something that I've just jumped on with the podcast as well. That we can do some more charity stuff.
Actually, here at Adepticon this year, we added like $3 from every ticket's going to the IRC, the International Relief Committee. I think that's what it stands for. And then all of our Horus Heresy beer sales are going to that too. Not sales; it's just it's a tip or whatever.
Donation.
Donation.
Stuff. So, what's planned for the Grain Legion running the Nova?
So at Nova, we have sort of at Adepticon we've split off this year, and we've had a couple of tournament type events, but we've also had a full narrative track. Whereas at Nova, I've just been sort of explicitly, this is a laid back narrative weekend.
Sure.
Not competitive is not what we're shooting for at this one.
Yeah.
Which is more my speed personally. But last year, we just sort of, that was how we pitched it, and everybody really got into the vibe, and a lot of people talked to me like it was the best weekend of gaming they've ever had. So I think people really enjoyed it. So this year coming up, we've added a Thursday event, and it's the opening salvo campaign. A couple of gentlemen have volunteered to head that up for me. And the opening salvo campaign is going to be sort of a casual. They're going to have a few different points levels, and you can show up and you can play one game, you can play 2 games, you can play 3 games. Because it's on Thursday, people are just going to be showing up. And they're going to have a couple different points values, so you can come do a Zone Mortalis, or you can do a bigger game if you want as well. And then Friday is going to be, I believe, the team campaign, or the doubles campaign, which everybody had been asking me to add. And that's just what it sounds. It'd be like a team tournament, only it's not a tournament, it's just a campaign. And you and a mate can team up, and you can get a Lord of War in there on one side or the other, and it should be good, crazy fun. I think we're calling it like the bromance campaign. And then
should be like the Pollux Dante Award,
right? Right. And then Friday night, we're having Nate Taylor. He runs our Mega Battles, and we're gonna have the Big Blam again. And last year at Nova, the Big Blam was the craziest thing I think I've ever seen in my life. It was like 3 Warlord Titans. I think we had a total of about 15 Titans on the board. Dozens and dozens of knights. So many super heavy tanks. I don't remember how many hundreds of thousands of points. It ended up being Nate sort of kept track.
Yeah.
But and Nate had his crazy Warlord Titan with did I say 3 Warhounds? I meant 3 Warlords.
Yeah.
Nate had his, and he had like speakers in it playing Black Sabbath and war horn sounds, and it was
Amazing.
bananas. It was bananas.
Awesome.
And then so the next day on Saturday we have sort of a escalation campaign. You start with a like 1,000-point game and work your way up to 2,250 or something like that. You have a Lord of War in it by the end.
Cool.
And then Sunday, my friend Ty, I believe, is doing this crazy night event again, where you can bring one night or you can bring a bunch, and he just has this crazy narrative thing where they're all duking it out to get objectives.
Yeah, it's becoming more of a popular event.
Yeah.
Around and about, and there's plenty of nights to choose from now.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That sounds awesome. Yeah, so what do you do then? Because we're at Adepticon, and we've got a couple of tournaments in name, which are still, they're not competitive all out. They're not going to be the 40k like the big tournament,
right.
But they're tournaments. And then you have this huge campaign event that's being run, as you said, by Ty. There's a great map. I'll try and take a photo. There's a great map and these poker chips all over this sector, and there's pawns being moved around. I'll tell you that's what the planets they're fighting over at the time.
Exactly.
Even I can understand it, so it must be quite simple. Really.
You can explain it to me later.
So, how do you go about for these events? Kind of not controlling, but maintaining the level of narrative of how people approach.
That's something I've thought about a little bit. I think we just model the behavior we want to see and model the enthusiasm we want to see, and people really buy into it. And like I was saying before, I have a lot of people tell me, oh my God, I'm coming from 40K, and this is the best weekend of gaming I've ever had. And I'm not that I'm dissing 40K. There's a lot about it I love. We've just set about trying to make it about friendship and fun and hobby and the narrative and just enjoying yourself, and winning or losing not being a big deal.
Yeah, that's. We just played a Zone Mortalis event, and no one got a prize for anything game based.
Most of the stuff on the narrative side, we're not giving out a lot of words like that.
Yeah.
It's mostly just painting, theme, sportsmanship, and even those, I try to make it so people aren't like gunning hard to win them. It's just like it's fun to give stuff away, and I love
the old sportsmanship. You want a beer, bro?
Yeah, exactly. People trying too hard to win sportsmanship, and actually, the way Ty's approached sportsmanship this year is he wants people to like. First of all, you can give someone a sportsmanship award who you didn't play a game against. You can vote for them. Just if you saw somebody doing something awesome. Yeah, there you go. But he makes people write a little essay or a little paragraph about why they were so great. And what's funny is some of them are, and I thought people would blow it off, but people are writing these long, and some of them are really, heartfelt, and some of them are freaking hilarious. And Ty added the best essay award for each one because we realized that needed to be a thing. Because some of them are just freaking hilarious.
You should put them up online.
I think he's going to post them on Facebook probably next week, or at least the winners. And so again, we're just trying to if there's any competition, it's just sort of silly, friendly competition.
Yeah.
And we're all grown-ups and relatively happy, successful people, so I don't think we shouldn't need to prove anything with our stupid toy soldiers.
No, and that's fair enough. And when you don't have prizes for winning, that tells you something about what winning means to that event. And I think you're right, with 40k there are some issues, and I think the biggest issue with that is people in the same event, some of the people want to win, some of the people want to have fun.
Yeah.
And some of the people, and so
you definitely run into that.
You get the mixed matches.
Right. I was talking to one of the GW guys, one of the website guys that are here, and he was saying the next version of 40k, they're sort of explicitly dividing it up, and there's going to be a narrative set of rules, and there's going to be a more competitive set of rules, and there'll be sort of a beginner set of rules. So that'll be interesting to see what that's all about.
Yeah, if it works anything like Age of Sigmar has, you'll see, much like Heresy, which is quite weird because I straddle all three kind of zones. I've written all my packs to try, like you have, take out this, encourage this, do that, and then you see Age of Sigmar are learning how to do that as they go with this. And all of a sudden you've got the competitive event and the narrative event, and you get all the same people with the same mindset at those events. And you can't moan when you go to the competitive event and get stopped because it's the competitive event. But yeah, so that's really cool.
Another mechanic I added this year that I should touch on, just because it's funny. A little bit of light game mastering in the narrative campaign is I built I think 10 of these gun turrets, and then I attached little tags with rules on them. And if I see somebody just getting positively walloped, I can be like, hey, the War Master has answered your call. Here's a super duper twin link las cannon with extra special rules. Or there's one that messes up enemy psychers, there's one that screws with enemy reserves, and there's some sort of super duper assault cannon. Yeah. So those are fun to pop down, and people are like, what?
Yeah,
although now they know they're coming after a couple of days.
They're hoping for them.
Right.
I'm doing really badly over here.
Exactly.
They sit there in charge, and again, crazy rules like that. If you had competitive people, it wouldn't mix well. It's another it's another thing to say. Right. Well, this is not the event you are looking for.
Everybody's pretty well rolled with it and thought it was quite amusing. So I haven't had a lot of people complaining about that.
Brilliant, and that's the kind of thing we could expect if we were at the Nova.
It's going to be definitely that kind of stuff, and we do a lot of crazy, random stuff to just keep everything insane. Yesterday's campaign, and I did this at Nova last year. Every player gets a special flamer template, acrylic flamer template that a friend of mine made for me. And tied to it, each one is a little envelope, and you assign it to a character at the beginning of each game. And you can only use it once per campaign. When you're ready to use it, then you open the envelope and see what the rules are.
Oh, brilliant.
And it might be good, it might be great, or it might explode in your face.
That's another story to tell.
So, exactly.
Absolutely,
so some of those have been quite fun and hilarious. We've also been doing... all day yesterday I had objective markers that were like little containers, and when you get to it, you open it up, and there's rules inside. Some of them have tokens for creatures that jump out and attack you. And they're all filled with candy, and a couple of them I also got sponsors to prizes, like secret weapon miniatures and blood and skulls. And the third one was I actually got a friend to make me some laser cut MDF little storage containers. Excellent. And so that's the objective itself, but you get to keep that when you get it.
Oh, brilliant! Excellent stuff. So I'm running an event, I think, the same weekend. So it'll be quite cool to.
Oh, cool!
While they're playing, I can be on Tinterwebs, seeing how you guys are getting on over here, and it's just another thing. And I think one of the good things about having this kind of discussion on the podcast is, you guys put some work in the terrain, particularly here. I'm lucky in that I can use the gaming venues with enough terrain, so I don't have to bring terrain.
Sure.
Helps me a lot.
Right.
I'm not that way inclined, but you've already said about 5 things that I'm now going to go down and write down and see what I can steal.
Awesome.
And it shows you that if you're going to do your own event, there's a million ways of doing it.
Yeah, and I think this kind of started because we wanted to make the event that we wanted to play in.
Sure.
So sometimes that's the best way to do it. It's just like, I'm going to make what I want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So. It is the way. Make the event you want. Right. So yes, so Nova. So are tickets available for that?
Tickets are available. They went on sale, I think, the beginning of February, but there are still lots of slots available.
Sure.
It's more of a slow burn on sales. Adepticon tends to sell out in the first 30 seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
But our numbers are way up, so we're gonna have a lot more people at Nova than we did last year in the Horus Heresy events.
Is that a case of you're limited to X amount, or is it there's X amount of space and it gets separated? Yeah, both.
They bumped up our slots a lot. I think we have 64 slots in every event this year, which is a lot more people than we had last year, and we'll see if we sell out. I don't know. But I think it's also just Heresy in general expanding, and also we were just successful, and I think a lot of people probably telling their friends to come do it with them or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So, roughly how much are we looking at if you want to go? Or if you don't know, you don't know.
I don't know what the overall cost for. It's probably like, I think the rooms at the hotel there are actually pretty reasonable. They're about $100 a night. A Nova badge is probably, I don't know. Let me see. I would have to guess just like,
I mean, that's fine.
Probably like $50 US. Yeah. And then the events are probably in the $20-ish range each. So, you're probably looking at $100 to Nova for the weekend of gaming, plus you have to worry about your hotel and whatnot. And travel.
Yeah, so, 4 days for $100.
Yeah.
There's not many other things you can do for that kind of value.
It's a good deal. Don't quote me on the prices, but, it's a good deal.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about Nova is they have food trucks line up outside all day, and so you get, like, tacos and Greek food and Middle Eastern food and Indian food. They have all sorts of different really good food. You don't have to rely on just the hotel bar.
So you're trying to bring gamers in by advertising the food.
Exactly.
Not to stereotype too much. Brilliant. Well, if people want to find out more, they can go to
novaopen.com, and also on Facebook we have you just search for Nova Open Horus Heresy. We have a Facebook group, and we also have an Adepticon Horus Heresy group if you're interested in that one. It's the best places to find us.
Yeah, and if you're not on those, get on them, because we're all interested in what other people are doing in Heresy. Sure. As you say, you're running X amount of events here with a load of people in it. That's a lot of games.
Yep.
There's a lot of individual games of Heresy, so you're going to see all kinds of weird and crazy stories. And
definitely.
I dread to think what's been going on.
I just posted a picture of a squad of Marines surrounded on all sides by super heavy tanks. I guess the Marines had invisibility cast on them, so we couldn't see them and shoot them. So he surrounded them with tanks, and then the fourth one tank shocked them. And they couldn't go anywhere, so they all got run over.
I haven't thought of doing that before. There we go. That's how you deal with Magnus if he invisibility himself. Yeah, no problem. It's easy. It's easy. It's Heresy game, isn't it? Excellent. Well, thank you for coming on and joining us.
Thanks a lot, Greg. I appreciate it.
I'll certainly stay in touch and maybe get you on again at some point.
Sure. That'd be great.
Cheers.
All right.
Okie dokie, that is the show done. It's late, and I'm going to head to bed. And
so am I.
Hopefully wake up in time for work tomorrow. But I've just been telling Neil he's going to try and post some pictures of what he's working on. Hopefully there's some inspiration for himself to crack on.
Yeah, might get the mojo back.
As I say, less than 2 months now till Warhammer Fest. So
yeah, it's weird for me. Just it doesn't feel real yet. It will soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we got there's a few events going on as well over the next few weeks. So that'd be cool over the next few weekends. Hopefully, see a lot of pictures and stories coming from those, which would be quite good. If you do have an event and you do want us to shout it out and it's relevant, then feel free to get a hold of me. More people asking about my events. They will be coming. There will be information coming. It's a little way off yet, so it's not majorly important to get that out. But if you do have any questions or anything, then feel free to get a hold of the show. Greg at theimperialtruth.com.
Oh, and Neil at theimperialtruth.com.
Yeah, smooth. And or on Twitter at Child of Fang or at Imperial_Truth.
And I'm at Neil Paints on everything.
Indeed, on everything. So, I saw another Stormcast army painted. It was a dull red and gold, but it was almost like the GW version of the Thousand Suns colour scheme.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I've seen 3 armies very similar. Well, 2 other armies very similar, but that's it. So that's quite cool. I thought just throw that out there. If you do want to look up Adepticon photos, as I say, GW took a load. There's 30k forums, a couple of guys on there, I think have taken a load, and there'll be more coming. It's a case of blog posts and things like that of people who get back, settle into work, have a couple of days recovery, and then sort that all out. And I know the guys are already thinking about their next event. Nova Open's coming up for the Grey Legion, and that sounds like a really cool event. And that may be one that's more accessible for a fly over, do it, fly back straight away kind of thing, because it's that extra. So it's more of a 5-hour flight than an 8-hour flight or 6-hour flight, and that can help a lot. You know, even just doing that means it's just easier to travel. It doesn't take quite so much out of you. But who knows? I'll add it to the list for sure.
Definitely.
If you've got a review of the show and you want to put it on iTunes, then feel free, go for it. Thank you very much if you do. It does help people understand our show a little bit better. Contrary to popular belief, I said it again. I'll say it again. It doesn't actually help us get rankings or anything for the reviews. That's done on a weird system that iTunes have, but it does give people a flavour of what the show is, and shows that kind of new people are there listening to it as well, which can influence some people. But the heresy scene, I was talking to some people out there actually, and I think we mentioned a few times now that like the Betrayal at Calth starters have finally got full armies. Like a few of them did it very quickly, but most people it takes a good year and a bit, doesn't it, to get a full army out. And from what I can see, we're really getting those Betrayal at Calthers, and then Prospero brought in that new wave of the big Space Wolf fans, the big Thousand Suns fans, the people who got really intrigued by the talents of the Emperor, and the people who looked at the box set and went, yeah, I can do that. Now it's affordable. And I think the show's reflected that a little bit. So it's great. So, you know, if you guys are listening to us and you haven't been listening to very long, awesome. Cool. Welcome. Join the community. If you have got any idea, when I say like contact us, if you have got ideas, if you've got irks, if there are things that irk you about the show, like, and you think, oh, frustrated, let us know. I'm not saying that we're going to change them, because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm still going to be on the show. So if that's your problem, tough, I record it. So, but if you have got like, honestly, just little bits of advice or questions or any kind of suggestions of topics, things like that, we do listen. We might not instigate them straight away, but I do take note of them, and it's always good to see what people want, because, you know, we sit here on this side of the mic and we don't always get a good opinion. Sometimes it's just like, good show. It's like, cool, thanks. I mean, it's really, you know, thank you. If that's all you've got to say, then that's brilliant. But if you tell us why it's a good show, then maybe we can put more of that kind of thing in.
Yeah, tell us what you like, because that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. Don't like any of that painting, Lark.
Yeah, get rid of all the painting stuff. I can retire then.
Yeah, we'll just have me talking about painting for the beginners. I don't need to laugh. That's a bit rude. But yeah, well, you know, I kind of think actually, in a weird way, I think that's a good thing. I think, you know, you can talk about top end painting, and I can talk about the easier way of doing it, because I'm not going to spend that many hours on a leg. So hopefully there's something in there catering for every part of the audience and stuff like that. But yeah, as I say, any ideas, then hit us up. I don't think there's much else to say. Do you, Neil?
No, I don't. No,
as always, it's so useful. Yeah, people say you bring a lot to the show.
Used to.
He's washed out already. He's being burned out. That's right. We've got a long way to go yet. Don't you worry about that. And I had some very bad thoughts while I was in over in America, looking at some of the cool new stuff that's coming. I think I'm a glutton for punishment, but maybe we'll talk more about that another day. But I think we're done. As I say, thank you very much for listening. And until next time, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.